Thanks for coming over here and spending your time with me. Time is something that we ain't gonna get back.
God gon' come with safety. The only time I'm safe is when I'm dangerous. Posted in the 30 with this 30, tryna leave them brainless. We still in the jets, exactly where them boys say we ain't hanging. Put cheese on my head, I come collect that shit. You think I'm playing? Trouble hop out bustin' at it, brother. Miss you know I'm hitting. We got O's and Bo's in here, and we got wood cook in the kitchen. If I say go get 'em, they go get 'em. Young boy fingers itching, fingers squeezing on the trigger. They heard all them glitches. Money man, I run it up. If I fall off, I'm poking shit. Told that bitch quit asking questions. I hate all that notice shit. We send shots the whole year round, no ring around the road and shit. Mala bro, he makes it vanish. He with hocus pocus shit. Chopper bust, they hit the ground. It's too many sticks around. We known to get greasy, pussy. Don't you have your bitch around? Switch up on this bitch. I catch him deep, get a whole click around. Put us in the midst of shit that we ain't do. We spinning now. Bitch keep trying to tell me slide. Think she trying to set the pick. But the hoes been tripping, texting my bitch on that messy shit. Left a bro out there with his brains out. Yeah, that's that messy shit. Bought another Glock. Let's catch a op so I can test the bitch.
What's good, everybody? Good morning, man. Good morning. I'm still a little bit on the wheezy side. Got a little bit of drunk last night for 4th of July, so I'm like lucky. I'm hungover a little bit. But we're going to make it through this, y'all. How are y'all doing, man? We got 5 people in the building already. Okay. We're going to talk about a few things this morning. We're going to talk about the locals. We're going to talk about Diddy. We're going to talk about a lot. Quit bothering me, bro. Hold on a second, y'all. Sorry, everyone. Salute, Spider-Man. Salute. Did you see the last video Net Stars did? We'll get into it. Don't worry. We'll get into it. But we're going to talk about what's next for Diddy, y'all. What is coming down the line for Diddy? Let's see here. You unsubbed? I did too. But I still go back and look. I still like to go back and look, you know. Hey, what's up, Chicky? Nah, he didn't mention you. He was talking about Diddy, but it was like I told y'all that every content that I've ever done, the very next thing he done is what I do. So it's like then he starts, well, everybody's talking about this. It's like, okay, but you didn't have to. Okay. Like, and then you didn't even know anything about it. You just was blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what the fuck? Okay, bro. Okay. Damn it. Took us out of it, y'all. See if it take it back to us. Probably not. Yeah, he might as well just give it up, bro. It was corny, and he's trying to copy you. That's stalker material right there. I think so too, but you know, I don't like to do that. I don't like to do that because if it makes me feel weird. It puts me in a place like, man, is this motherfucker really like gay? Is he gay? Is he gay? All right, so we're going to bring in Sidebar, which is Law and Crime Network. And we're going to talk about what happens next for Diddy. Then we're going to move along to you, Tuballard.
Today's a great victory. It's a great victory for Sean Combs. It's a great victory for the jury system. You saw that the Southern District of New York prosecutors came at him with all that they had. They're not stopping, but one thing stands between all of us and a prison, and that is a jury of 12 citizens.
Diddy may have been acquitted.
Aren't you guys happy to live in America? What's up, Wookie?
But he still was convicted.
Aren't you guys happy to live in America? For real, for real. And happy birthday, Lucky. We made it through another year, baby. We made it through another year. Good morning to everyone.
Too. So what's next for him in terms of sentencing, his finances, facing a wave of lawsuits, including a brand new one from a former exotic dancer who claims Diddy drugged and assaulted him, caused him to lose teeth and have to get gastric surgery? We're going to talk about it all right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
See, the funny thing is, people are now suing Cassie, bro. People are suing Cassie now for getting on the stand and lying about them. These sex workers, oh yeah, they're suing Cassie, bro. They are suing Cassie now. See, this is the shit you get yourself wrapped up into, thinking like no one else would get in it. No one else. Yeah, okay.
Hey everybody, this is another Law and Crime legal alert. If you received Depo-Provera birth control shots and were later diagnosed with a brain or... For all of this, let me bring on former sex crimes prosecutor and criminal defense attorney, the great Matt Murphy is with us. Matt, good to see you.
James,
Happy to be
salute,
here,
salute,
as always.
salute.
Got to ask you your reaction to the verdict. Is it what you expected?
Well, hearkening back to, I don't know, we were talking about this, you and I, a couple of months ago, and I got to say, you know, whether it's fun to be right or not in a case like this, we're both right. This was never a good fit for Rico for a lot of different reasons. And the consent element regarding the sex trafficking was always problematic. And I thought the prosecution here did a good job presenting their case. They did a good job presenting their theory. But when you match in a
We have
trial
started to
context,
go
when you
to show
match,
AD
like,
some love.
professorial and kind
You
of
don't want
plotting,
to, that's
which
fine.
is the
You
way
do not
a lot
have
of
to. You do not have to donate to this channel. We love you anyway.
government lawyers are, versus dynamic and engaging and that personality of the defense. It's always a mismatch. You're always up against it. And the Mann Act, like we talked about, I thought he was going down on that after like the second day of testimony. The problem is, for the prosecution, the Mann Act is a very old law, and it was essentially legislative morality from about 100 years ago, where it was transporting prostitutes across state lines. The intent may have been good. It was essentially a very early version of sex trafficking, but it was really more an attempt to stop prostitution, which is, as we know, never going to happen. So almost every lonely guy in New York City who's going through a divorce, who is having a problem in the dating pool, who has some sex worker drive over from New Jersey, if he buys her Uber or his Uber, theoretically, that's a violation of the Mann Act. So that is it's not the same type of crime. There's no mandatory minimum under federal law. The judge does not have to. That. Right. They don't have to. Now, it carries up to 10 years per event. So he faces up to 20 years. The prosecution, I think, is asking for 46 months or something like that. They're asking for far less than that.
If the case was, if they had called, let's say, Christina Coram,
What's up,
the
man?
chief of staff, who had been mentioned, I think, by almost every witness, and she said, hey, listen, there was a criminal enterprise, okay? We were all a part of it. Everybody knew what the job description was. My job was to do this. His job was to do this. You think they would have gotten racketeering? If they didn't include Jane, who was arguably the more problematic testimony, I mean, Sean Combs still paying her rent, messages that she was setting up a lot of these sexual encounters. You know, Cassie had messages too that were problematic that showed
Very
we're talking about whether
problematic.
she was a willing participant or not. But if you focus just on Cassie and you didn't call in Jane, or you didn't call in a Mia, or you didn't call in a Brianna Bengolan, if you limited the case, and now it's so easy to play, you know, Monday morning quarterback or armchair lawyer here. But do you feel that the prosecution could have won this case if they structured it differently, if they called different witnesses?
That's a great question, and that's something that these prosecutors will literally be wondering for the rest of their lives, for the rest of their careers. They're going to be wondering if they'd done it differently, would the impact upon the jury and would the result have been different. The fundamental problem, I think, is that this was kind of always a round peg in a square hole. The arson, that domestic violence video that we all watched, that's horrific. All of that should have been prosecuted as state crimes in Los Angeles.
Yes.
That as a fundamental
Every bit of them.
point.
Every bit of them should have probably been prosecuted. But the fact is, they held that tape. They held that.
Well, they couldn't do it now. It was time barred.
No, of course, the statute is run on everything.
Yep.
But that would have been, he would have been prosecuted for exactly what he did instead of predicate acts into a RICO theory. Now, RICO, as we know, was designed for essentially mafia organization, for organized crime. And the idea is simply because there's a legitimate business, like in The Godfather, they had a legitimate olive oil importing business. And that was but it was still a criminal enterprise. The real thing was the mafia. The real thing was the organized crime surrounding the Corleone family, to use an example that everybody can probably relate to. So simply because their olive oil importing business was legitimate, that's not a defense to a RICO thing. That's the current state of the law. What they did here is they took a business that was always legitimate, Bad Boy Records, that was always and the purpose is to make music and make money. Everything surrounded that. And the defense argument, which they obviously argued very effectively, was that is not a criminal enterprise. So the very first element of RICO has always been problematic from the very beginning. You and I talked about that 2 months ago when the whole thing started. And and the jury, this was a sober jury that the questions were serious and direct. And, they sent that note out regarding juror 25 right at the very beginning saying, hey, this guy's not deliberating. And so this was a serious group. And the Mann Act, they did convict on that. So they were, by the fact that that it was unanimous, meant that they were getting along. Federal juries tend to be, in California anyway, we have, they draw our state juries off the DMV database. That's how you get jury duty, is from the DMV. Federally, it's based on voter rules. So it's people who are conscientious enough to actually vote. And you tend to get a more serious class of juror in federal court, which I think
state jurors, they get voted into the jury pool, or you'll get a letter in the mail about appearing for jury duty just because you went to the BMV and got a license, or because you went and got a state ID. But federal jury duty is because you voted and they know where you are.
It's interesting. So to answer your question, it's something that we could kick around for years.
Sure.
But I think the fundamental problem here is that it was always kind of a misfit for a RICO theory. Just like the sex trafficking, sex trafficking requires fraud, force, or coercion, right? So that essentially is the same elements of rape. So you essentially, it's transporting somebody under circumstances that equate to rape. Is something forceful, something fearful. That it just doesn't fit very well here, especially when you're talking about all these people who they're orbiting him. They're all trying to advance their own career. And when the defense attorney got up and said, Cassie got $30 million, as a result of her settlement, right? And that was a big move.
Yeah, I wasn't sold for that personally, because I was like, the prosecution came back and be like, she already settled. What's her incentive to come here and lie? You know, what's her incentive to be a part of this? And that for me, but I think the messages, the conduct that arguably contradicts someone being a victim, and I know there's complicated factors between an abuser and a victim, the trauma. I get it. I totally understand it, but I wonder if that's what settled the jury. Okay, I want to move past the verdict because now we have to talk about what's happening next. First thing, when the sentencing hearing is going to happen. So they have this hearing next week about whether to expedite the sentencing, happening before October 3rd. If both sides agree, great. If they don't, what is a compelling legal argument for the defense to say, we want this sentencing to happen much sooner?
Well, I mean, we know that behind the scenes, what they want, of course, is they expect a chance that he's going to be released. So that's their big motivating factor, of course. Whether the court abides by that, I mean, it is a substantial change in circumstance. He was acquitted of all of these serious charges, right?
But he was just denied bail. He was denied bail again.
He was denied bail again, and I actually learned that on your segment yesterday afternoon as I was sort of doing my preparation for this. But we have to remember that one of the things that he got in trouble for, that Diddy got in trouble for in jail, was using other inmates' calling number. Remember that? So he was calling witnesses in the case from jail using other inmates. That was a direct affront to that judge. That was remember, we had all those attempts at bail that were denied at the very beginning of the case, one after another. This judge, and it's the same judge who's going to sentence him, denied that over and over again. And you and I, again, in another conversation we had on your show, we both said he is screwed now, that he's got no chance because he's violating the rules of the court while in jail. So if he's disobeying the rules of the jail and the directive of the court while he's in custody, how can he be expected to actually follow the terms of a bail agreement when he's out of custody?
Right.
And I think that chicken is coming home to roost again. I mean, I think that's what happened yesterday afternoon. That any judge who has a criminal defendant who behaves like that is an affront to the court itself. It's disrespectful to the court. And it's almost like he couldn't get out of his own way there at the beginning. But he had an excellent defense team.
He does. So assuming for a moment, whenever the sentencing hearing happens, right? Let's say it happens in a month from now. Let's say it has October 3rd. The question is, what's the sentence? As we mentioned, I think the prosecution...
I think he'll be sentenced in June. I honestly do. Because most of the time when a judge says, no, I'm not going to release him on bail, but I'll give you an expedited time before then to have an early bail hearing. That's usually because the judge wants to insert his power and say, no, you ain't going home now, but let's wait a month, see how you act. Then we'll see if you can go home. And almost 99.99% of the time, you get your early bail hearing and you bail out. Now, this is Fed. I don't know. I've never done Fed time. Never been in Fed court. Never done anything federally wrong. Knock on wood.
Filing from yesterday talked about the guidelines range being 51 to 63 months. Now, this is before a pre-sentencing investigation and report. Now, the defense, right, they want 21 months. He's already served almost 10. Talk to us about what you're thinking here, because there is no minimum. The maximum's 10. You've the
no minimum
together, like you said, 20 years. Feels highly unlikely that would happen. As we're talking about, what is a pre-sentencing report investigation?
No minimum. No minimum means that Diddy's not going to have to serve any jail time, which means if he would have got caught, bailed out, he would still be facing no time to a maximum of something. So once he does a pre-sentence investigation and they find out you've never been in trouble, you've never had a felony, oh, you've only got a couple traffic tickets, well, then them points are going to go way down.
investigation? How would it affect this? What do you think the judge is going to do? There's so many different factors to consider here. And it's not like a murder case when it's like, okay, we know what's going to happen. It's like life in prison without the possibility of parole. It's a given. There's room here. What do you think the judge is going to do?
So in federal court, this is actually very interesting. They rely very heavily on those pre-sentencing investigations. So essentially what will happen is there'll be a federal probation
heavily.
officer, and they
Too
do
heavily,
these for
yo.
almost every case. where
They
will
rely
do their
too heavily on those PSIs, pre-sentence investigation. They rely too heavily. Those motherfuckers can lie. Dude, they were shit in my pre-sentence investigation that wasn't even true. They had to do 2 of them. I go into court with my PSI. They done got so much shit wrong. I'm like, hold up. They're like, okay, well, you'll have to sit another month to do a PSI. I'm like, son of a bitch. But you don't want them to have the wrong things.
Investigation where they'll talk to family members, they'll talk to employers, they'll talk to neighbors, and they will make a recommendation to the court as to suitability for release, suitability for time. And that's something that federal judges traditionally really adhere to. They tend to put a lot of weight on those, far more than they do in state court. The probation department can make a recommendation, but the DA will certainly have more ability most of the time to talk a judge in or out of a sentencing recommendation from the probation department. Federal court is different. They really put a lot of weight on those. So that's something that I think is going to be very interesting. And a lot of that will come down to what the individuals involved in that investigation, even though it shouldn't impact their professional recommendation. It's really, I think we're going to see what they thought of the case. Did they think he got away with something horrific here? Did they think that he was getting railroaded from the beginning? I think that may reflect in the recommendation to the court. But of course, we don't know what that is yet. I don't know. If I'm his defense lawyer, I don't know if I am pressing the gas on that, trying to make this thing go faster. I mean, it's coming up soon enough anyway. I would want to give them the time and not press them, because you don't want to.
Yeah, it's like 3 days
officer
away, bro.
Anybody in the federal system to feel like they're being rushed,
Right?
Because I think it's very easy to just go, okay, screw it, the guy should stay in.
The prosecution made the point yesterday. They said the point, like, we're not ready to give a really sentencing recommendation. We haven't gotten the report. There's people say, well, maybe he'll get time served, right? He's been locked up. There's other people say, no, the judge is going to throw the book at him, even though the judge said yesterday, even though I'm denying him bail and I'm looking at certain conditions, this is not reflective or a preview of what my sentencing recommendation or what my sentence will be. But, are we looking at double digits? Are we looking, you think, at 1 to 5 years time served? I know it's so impossible.
I see 5 being the max, man. If he does get any time, I see 5 being the max. Suspend. Fuck, I don't even see him doing anything.
But it is a very specific charges he was convicted of.
I don't.
Yeah, we're not looking at double digits.
Okay.
I cannot imagine the court imposing that. And remember,
especially when he's alleged that he's done all these crimes, right? He's alleged that he's did this. He alleged that he did that. But in the state of Indiana, if I go from the east side to the west side and I pick me up a prostitute and I drive her from the west side to the east side, guess what? That's still just engaging in prostitution. It's a misdemeanor crime that they're probably not even going to arrest you on. You'll give you a little ticket to appear in court. But here Diddy is facing up to 20 fucking years for it. You see what I'm saying? Like, yeah, he did beat all the other shit. But yeah, here Diddy is with just simple prostitution facing up to 20 fucking years.
Is so old, and we're in
Think
the age
about
of
it.
Uber. So literally, somebody in New York City, a man or a woman who engages the services of a sex worker who lives in New Jersey, and if they pay for their Uber, that technically is a Mann Act violation. Okay, so it's a morality crime, and that it just does not carry the same weight.
Will the judge say, hey, listen, multiple instances he was doing it, not one Uber, he was doing it multiple times. You have 2 alleged victims here, Cassie, Jane, and violence, right? The used violence as one of the reasons to deny him bail. I wonder if he's going to look at, even though he was acquitted of racketeering and sex trafficking, different characteristics and components of his relationships with Jane and Cassie and say, this is aggravated.
It's a very interesting question. Can the court aggravate nonviolent offenses that he was convicted of, which are the Mann Act violations? Can he aggravate those when he was acquitted of the more serious charges, essentially acquitted of everything that involved violence, threats, all of that sort of thing? So it's a very, very interesting legal question.
Real quick, asset forfeiture. What is that exactly? How would it work with Mann Act convictions?
I just don't see the feds having it being on very strong ground to seize a bunch of assets. And here's why, Jesse. Most of the federal cases where you have, especially RICO cases, an actual RICO case is an actual corrupt organization that the purpose is, like I had one in Salt Lake City last year. It was a fraud case where it was one of these calling room scam operations. Every dollar that they made in that, they made out of the bank account of some poor innocent victim who got scooped up in their scheme. So every dollar,
hold on,
everything they bought, every car,
could that
every
be
house.
LH Securities? Could you mean LH Securities?
Everything that they owned was a direct result of money that they gleaned from innocent people. Those are the cases, or narcotics. We see this all the time in narcotics cases where but it's the same principle. All the things that they have are a result of narcotics profits, right? So when you look at one of those cases,
Saturday
here we've got mansions all over the place. We've got planes. This is a very, very wealthy man.
I'm gonna go sit by
that money
today. Fuck it.
Legitimately in Bad Boy Records, in the music industry, and in the film industry. That's how he made his money, and that is not a product. And that's where we come full circle to this square peg and round hole regarding a RICO theory on this. The money, he didn't make any money from the freak-offs. He didn't make any money from all of the alleged things he did. He didn't make any money from that horrible video that we saw where he's beating Cassie in that hotel. That's not the source of his income. So I think, again, I don't think that the feds or even the court, I don't think the court would look kindly on that. And there's an old adage in the law that you and I've talked about before. Bad facts make bad law, right? And if they run around and try to seize a bunch of stuff based on this, they're literally taking assets from a citizen that earned them legally. He may be a villain, he may be a bully, he may be a horrible person, but he made that money legally. He was not charged here with tax fraud, which means he paid taxes on it.
Legal, bro.
So I don't see this judge
is legal.
I think it'd be a very poor move if they try to take a bunch of his stuff. I think that they still have to create a nexus between the Mann Act violations and his property, and I just don't see it.
I don't see it. Okay, well, he might need the money. Why? Because he's got a plethora of civil lawsuits that he's facing now. By the way, in fact, Tenny Garagos had something to say about that yesterday.
Sean Combs has not sexually assaulted anybody. I've been saying this for months. We've said it with each lawsuit that came out, and today that was proven true. The media got it wrong about Sean Combs every single day for nearly 2 years. I ask that for every time you guys see a civil lawsuit, criminal complaints or criminal indictments, you actually take a look and analyze these and see whether or not these are actually going to stand up in a court of law, because today they did not.
So Sean Combs, he is facing dozens of sexual assault lawsuits.
Dozens, y'all. Dozens. He's got lawsuits over him. I guess he's got new crimes that he could be appearing for. All of that.